All right, so I want to get this over with, so I'm going to do it real quick. I tried it on my other phone, but the thing wouldn't stop fucking vibrating. I got 3 phones, and none of them do what they're supposed to. Anyway, so I am homeless currently, and I was originally living in Brockton, Mass. Lived there for almost 10 years, but ran around there for longer doing drugs and shit. And then we were like a month late on our rent because I wasn't working. My dad was only getting so much from SSI, so I had to take some of that to get my license back so that I could work. So everyone that was a month or two late on rent, my landlord kicked out. So he evicted like 20 people. It was fucking wild. So, and then my dad went to some rehab center, like old people shit, rehab center. So I'm with my dog on the street. I had to give some of my other dog, my Rottweiler, so he's in Springfield now. And then my boxer is now with some good people, so that's that. But I had to live in my office for a little while, but my boss was cool and let me. So I started taking Adderall back from my doctor. DCF requested that shit. That's a whole nother story. Cried for like a week because what it does is it lights up every part of your brain, and especially the frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex, I believe. So you get super emotional and your personality changes and shit. So had a really bad reaction. So I ended up getting fired and then had to live in my truck, which was a 2013 Chevy Tahoe. So I ended up doing Lyft and shit and living in Brockton's Walmart parking lot for like a month maybe. But then I was like, bro, there's nothing out here. Like, even when I was working, I had $5,000 in cash in my hands and a good job, and I still couldn't get anything because they're only renting to Section 8. So I was like, fuck this, and I left. So I started working, doing Lyft in Boston, and started sleeping in my truck at South Bay, which is like a shopping plaza off Mass Ave. So I was there for a while, and I would work, I don't know, night and day. I worked way too much. So anyways, then it got to the point where like I was there for a couple of days and I was like, yeah, fuck this. So I went down the Ave and started asking people, like, where do I get this? Where do I get that? How do I do this? How do I do that? And everyone was mad helpful. So he told me to go to Elliott, and I was like, all right, cool. So I called Elliott, signed up with them or whatever, and everyone said that they're the fastest for housing. So cool. So then one of my old friends from Brockton, I ended up talking to her through one of my other friends that was helping me out because he moved to Roxbury. He moved to Roxbury, so he'd let me shower there a couple times a week. So he was on the phone with her, and I was like, oh, where's she at? Because I knew she was homeless too. So he was saying that she got a place, and I was like, what fucking, let me talk to her. So she was like, nah, I'm in a shelter. And I was like, oh, okay, where? Blah, blah, blah. So she told me to go to Woods Mullen on Mass Ave, get an intake done there, and tell them about the place she's at, which I can't say the name. So went to Woods Mullen, spoke to the triage coordinator, did an intake there, and then I told him, I was like, hey, my friend's over here, and she already spoke to the director, and the director told me to tell you to call her. He was like, oh, I know her, I'll call her. Cool, great. So I left. 5 days later, he calls me and he's like, oh, she said you're good, go down there ASAP. Great. So I was actually in the fucking hotel parking lot at South Bay. So left, went down there, and been here ever since. That was January 7th or 9th. So it's now almost December. So I'll be here almost a year in January, which I'll also have 9 years clean January 16th, but that's whatever. So now I'm in the shelter where